What's up guys, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Light Beast raid. So this is my the highest score that I have on the raid beast. Now I want to discuss the strategy with you, but it'll be easy to show you with the strategy info section. So you can actually look at this section for any raid beast you want. It'll give you a pretty well detailed description of all the skills that they do, and it even gives you a few tips on what you should be trying to aim for. Alright, so the unique aspect of this boss is what's called light distortion. So it's this ability here, that's described here, which creates a distorted shield, and what it does is it reduces the damage done to the boss. So the shield has a certain amount of health, right, and obviously the boss has a certain amount of health. And what happens is when you do an attack, the shield will absorb some of the damage, and then the rest of the damage will go to the boss. Alright, so the idea here is just to break the shield, right, as soon as possible. If you don't break the shield, then the boss's attacks will do more damage based on how much health is left on the shield. Okay. When the damage is decreased on a per hit basis apparently, so multi hits will do less damage to the boss, so you're better off doing like large single target hits. Right? Well, that's the general idea. The whole idea is pretty simple. This boss is more of I'll describe it like an MMO raid fight where it's just like a simple tank and spank, but it's like a gear check at the same time. So yeah, there's like nothing difficult about the fight. It's just that you need the runes to do it. Alright, so that's the main aspect of the fight. Apart from that, it's mostly the same as like the other. Like it's got the standard base attacks. Like light sweep is like just a standard AoE attack, and Fawn of Despair is the attack that does large damage to your front row, and you want to have high defense for to mitigate that. And then Shining Rageful Breath, I should say, is the last final hit or attack, and it's pretty much a wipe if you get to that stage, especially with the distorted shield up. But what it does is it removes all your beneficial effects and does a lot of damage at the same time. Okay, now one thing I want to talk about though is with unit choices. Like with the other raid beasts, you have elemental advantage, right? And they've increased their elemental advantage to like 50% extra damage done, right, to the boss if you have elemental advantage. And if you have elemental disadvantage, you will take 50% more damage. Now the weird thing with light and also the dark raid, which I'll talk about in the next video, but with light, with the light boss, obviously it's designed that you're supposed to bring dark units to the fight because you do more damage, but at the same time you also take more damage, and that's pretty hard because a lot of the dark DPS units are quite squishy, right? I mean, I have tried some runs with some of the like dark DPS units, like I've used Shuma and Helia. Those are my two main ones. It does good damage, but at the same time it makes it it makes it more unstable. Like there'll be times where I might wipe because they're taking too much damage, they'll die, and then I lose the DPS during the final stage, and I can't keep up. So what I recommend is, if you can't make like a good enough dark team and you don't want to dedicate runes to it, just ignore the elemental advantage side of things. My team still does triple S even without any dark units. I mean, if you do have some of like the good dark units like Bethany, mainly Faye. Faye is probably the main one, because Faye you can build her a bit tankier because you probably build her tanky for R5, and you probably put her on Vampire. So she can probably keep herself alive quite easily. But other units like Shuma and like other like dark units are a bit harder to run in here, I mean, you can do that if you want to like really push for damage, but yeah, as I said, like the rune requirements for them are quite high because you're taking a lot of extra damage, and I feel this is a bit of a design flaw in my opinion. Like, it doesn't really make sense that in the other elemental raids, like if you have elemental advantage, you don't take any extra damage. But you know, I feel it's a bit of an oversight, and when they were like when they decided to implement that, I feel like dark units just shouldn't have that, you know, that extra damage taken thing, because otherwise there's, you know, not much point to actually run them. But anyway, I'll talk about my team first. So there are definitely units you can replace them with. Okay, now first off, I want to talk about Stella. So Stella, you probably built her for a lot of things already. She does have multi-hits on her third skill, and that's bad for the Distorted Shield. But she does a lot of, like, she does do pretty good single target damage with, you know, first two skills. Plus she provides the debuffs, which is very important for the groggy stage. So I do recommend that you do still bring her, even though she has multi-hits on third skill. As long as you minimize your multi-hits on other units, then it shouldn't be too bad. Alright, so she's on the standard speed DPS build. You can even run her on like attack, crit damage attack as well. And if you were trying to build her specifically for like this sort of raid, then you would try to put her up to 100% crit rate. But I think 85 is enough. Like, obviously it's not max crit, but it's gonna be max for other like the fire areas. Like if you're running her in fire raid and dragons, and you don't really want to like sacrifice attack or crit damage to like increase her crit rate, because then her damage will go down in those areas. So I think overall she's still good enough with 85 crit rate, and that will make it a bit easier to rune up for those, like, you know, fire raid and dragons. So that's what I would recommend for her. Hua He. Now Hua He obviously is not like 100% required. You can use Coleen instead. That's fine. You can pretty much use any healer you want. The main reason why I would recommend Hua He or Coleen is because they provide attack buff as well as the heal. But if you're getting attack buff from someone else already, then it's fine to run some other healer like Bella or even like a Drunken Master or something like that. That works too. But I like Hua He because she's attack power scaling healer. Like all the other raids apart from water, that she can be used in pretty much everything, right? So if you have her built and you can max skill her Amuse, then she's worth building and just using her as your universal healer for, you know, pretty much all the elements except for water. Now you don't need her to be this fast. I'm even considering just slowing her down a little bit, and maybe trying to increase her like crit rate or attack a little bit more. But I think as long as you can get her to around 200 speed, that's good enough. Try to get her to about 2k attack or higher, and then like a decent amount of tanky substats. Like I would aim for at least 18k HP. The more the better. And for defense, I would also try to aim for probably at least 900, and I would recommend like 1k as like a baseline. Apart from that, it's just standard sort of speed, attack sort of build. You can also do triple attack if you want, or if you can get enough attack power substats, or if you're running her on fatal, you could even do something like attack crit rate, speed crit rate attack, or speed crit damage attack. That's also another option. That way she'll do more damage. Although if you stack more attack percent on her, so doing speed attack, that will increase her healing power. So it's easier for her to keep units up. And she can pretty much full heal all these like squishy DPS units by doing that. So that's why I would recommend to build her that way. But this is not the only way you can build her. Okay, this is my Homunculus. Now Homunculus, I've shown it before, but you can use it here. He does do some multi-hits, which is bad, but he does do the debuffs, which is the most important, like the branding and the defense break plus branding here. You can also build him as like a fire version. The fire version does more single target damage. You can do either the the speed scaling single target burst damage one, or you can go for Eruption. Eruption is the one that scales off harmful effects, so it's like another Magellan sort of unit. Either of those will work. But mine is on the attack, crit damage attack. It's just standard sort of nuker build. You can make it faster if you want, but he doesn't really need to be that fast. I used to run it on speed, crit damage attack, but I felt, you know, I'd rather do I'd rather do more burst damage on, you know, when it's his turn. Like, the thing with the groggy stage is you have a limited number of turns. So for me personally, I'd rather them make more efficient use of their turn by doing, you know, a higher amount of damage rather than them moving more often. But obviously you don't want to be too slow. I think you want to aim for your units to be around about 150-ish speed at least. Otherwise, if it's lower than 150 speed, you know, you won't be able to keep up with the boss's attacks. They'll come too often. But around about 150 to 180, I think is a good number to have. Now, if you don't have the Homunculus, you can, I mean, any DPS would work, but ideally you want something that provides some sort of debuff. I know Stella already provides branding, but another unit that brings branding would be pretty helpful too. Alternatively, you just run like some sort of damage dealer that also does defense break. Like you could use something like Field Mars, for example, and that'd be fine too. Alright, or you can run Shumar if you can make him survive, like, or have enough survivability. Alright, so this is Tark. So Tark is also another like standard unit that you could build. He does have a little bit of multi-hit by doing group hunt, but it's not too bad if you're running mostly units that only have like a single hit on their first skill. Obviously it's bad with the Homunculus, but if you're running things like Stella, Field Mars, they only have single hits on their first skill, so it's not too bad if they come along on group hunt. At least they're doing more damage and, like, you know, they're adding extra damage for their hit. But otherwise he does do pretty good single target burst with ambush and bite, so he's a standard sort of hellhound. Does pretty good single target damage. Mine's on like attack, crit damage attack. As far as the stats, like, or the sets are concerned, you just want to use whatever set gets you to the stats that you want. Now for me, I put him on a Swift set because he scales a bit better with Swift, alright? Because he's got 115 base speed, which is well above average. Like, it's quite good actually. It's one, you know, fairly high. Whereas his base attack is only 714, so it doesn't scale very well with Fatal. So if you don't put him on Swift, I would recommend putting him on Rage instead. I feel like you'll get better, like, you know, scaling off that rather than going with Fatal. But if you have to put him on Fatal, or you can also do like Broken sets plus Blade sets or something like that, you can do that too. But you just want to aim to get him to around about. I mean, it depends actually. Like, if you're gonna use him in DB10, you're probably gonna get him to around about, you know, 180, 190 speed or something like that. He needs to be slower than Stella. So anything like below Stella, it should be okay. Just be mindful that his speed is quite high though, so he'll gain a lot of speed from like Verd and Verd lead and your speed tower. So if in DB10, I actually deliberately make my Tark a fair chunk slower than Stella, otherwise he'll be too fast. So yeah, around about this speed works well for me. Otherwise, just stack, you know, as much damage as you can. Same sort of idea as the Homunculus. When your Tark gets his turn, you want him to do like a large amount of burst damage. There's no real replacements for Tark. I mean, he's like Nat 2, so everyone should be able to build him anyway. Alright, so Xiaolin. Now Xiaolin's a little bit tougher to obtain. I mean, she's a Nat 4 and not farmable, but you have a decent chance to get her. So if you have her, then great. Otherwise, just use any other like tanky frontline damage dealer that you can get your hands on. Something like a Trevor would work too. I actually used to use Trevor more as a replacement for my Perna, but it still worked pretty well because he has large single target burst damage too, and he can also potentially solo the boss at the end. but for Shaolin, also same like standard attacker build, attack crit damage attack. You can do like if your Shaolin's like not tanky enough, you can give her a HP rune or defense rune. I have seen people use defense rune. Defense rune actually is not that bad on her because her base defense is quite high. 659 is pretty good for like an attacker. So so she can scale. She probably scale better with defense over HP, but don't neglect her HP too much, of course. That's only if you can't make her tanky enough for frontline. That's like a last resort. Ideally, she should be on attack crit damage attack, of course. You can do speed crit damage attack if you want. I've personally never tried it. Like theoretically, she will have more turns, and that means more of the turns are taken by her. But then she's not doing as much damage as she could do with attack slot 2. So I guess it's something for you to test out if you wanted to do that. But yeah, she's suitable for a frontliner if she's on Vampire. If she's not on Vampire, then don't put her in the front. You probably put Coleen or something in the front instead, or whatever your healer is. Alright, now this is my Perna. So my Perna is actually more for like a PvP build. So you don't really like look at this sort of build. This is like, I'm not using like attack stats on this. Ideally, if I had a second Perna, right, I would build it specifically for raids, and that would be on a attack crit damage attack build, right? Or maybe even speed crit damage attack. But I would ideally make it attack crit damage attack, and probably put it on fight runes instead of violent. I actually don't like violent in any raids, but I have to use. Well, I want to use Perna mostly for the attack power lead. Like if you have an alternative attack power lead, like a universal attack power lead, or you can also use a crit rate lead if you want. That means your units can drop crit rate and you can stack more crit damage or attack. You can do that too. It just makes it a little bit more awkward to use in other areas where you may not have the crit lead. That's the only downside to running crit lead, but crit lead is a way for you to increase your overall damage as well. Now, as a replacement, I can just use something like a Trevor. Right? Actually, I'll just go through some of the like replacement units that you could use here. So Trevor is pretty good because he's got his passive, which reduces his damage taken, right? So he's very tanky, and if you put him on Vampire, he will leech health back, like a lot of the health back, because he does large burst damage. Because as his HP goes down, he does more damage, right? And he's also like self-buffing on crit rate, which is quite nice. Self-buffs on attack as well, so he can keep these buffs up quite easily, and that also reduces his rune requirement a little bit, especially with the second skill, because since he's buffing crit rate on himself, he doesn't need to have max crit rate. He can just go with like 70% or something like that, or even 55 if you already tuned that for win rate. But yeah, he's definitely like someone that you should consider. He's good in the front line, and yeah, so you can consider that. Also, even the water version of him is not bad for this, mostly because he's got the leader skill for attack power, and he's a single target damage dealer too. He's not too bad. He's got the same first skill as Trevor. He doesn't have the passive, but he does do defense break on second skill as long as he crits. And obviously, I think you should be like aiming for him to have max crit anyway. But yeah, you can use him as like a extra defense breaker and the attack power lead. Let's see. Obviously, the other like Kung Fu girls are very good for this. Like you can use Liu Mei, mainly the LD ones, but you can potentially use like the fire and wind one if you happen to have them built. Let's see. I should have just clicked on the Kung Fu girl earlier. Maybe it'd be easier if I just go to water and change it. I'm a bit tired, can't find it. But anyway, Liu Mei is still good for it. Like pretty much any Kung Fu girl is good because the first skill is a defense break, and then they do large burst damage with the third skill. So you can do that. This one is a slow, which is another like nice thing to have on the groggy stage. And obviously Faye is the best because she's got the elemental advantage, but obviously she's an LD nat 4, so it's not easy to obtain. But anyone who does have Faye can use her for it as well. Let's see. You can also any sort of like single target burst damage dealer would probably work here. Like you could use Ardella even. Where's Ardella? So the reason to use Ardella is because her rune requirement is quite low, right? But also her critical damage increases as she takes more damage, right? So if you put her on Vampire, she can keep herself alive and do some pretty good damage with her passive up. And she has good single target burst damage. She doesn't have any nothing really relevant as far as debuffs are concerned. Because she's a neutral element, she'll do attack power down on the groggy stage. It does add damage to things like Magellan third skill or like the Homunculus third skill, and her own like first skill also scales up harmful effects. So she can like apply to increase her own damage like that way. So you can use her. Let's see. Let me just see if I can find some other units real quick. I think those are probably the main ones that I can think of. But yeah, any single target burst. Oh, actually, no. Obviously, Phil Mars is pretty good for this too. He's got crit rate lead and he's got large single target damage, right? So I actually used to use him in my team as well. You can do that. As far as nat 5s are concerned, you can use things like Tayor, Lagbaron with the same like Squall. They both do good single target damage, and Tasha does really good single target damage with second skill. You can probably also use Lin. Lin's another good single target burst damage dealer. Lin. She's a little bit squishy, but at least she doesn't take extra elemental damage. So as you can see, she has very low base health. Base defense. Her base health actually is pretty decent. But her base defense is pretty bad. So if you can give her a bit more base defense, then she should be okay as long as you give her about 20k HP. So you can try that. But overall, make sure you bring the relevant debuffs. All right, like any other raid beast, you want to bring defense, break, branding, and slow. Right, in that order, that's of importance. And of course, you want to bring attack buff. So as long as you have all those covered, that will be giving you your maximum damage potential. Other than that, it's really just rune quality that makes the main difference. Also, I'll just quickly show you the Homunculus skill builds which you can use, which I mentioned earlier. So if you go to the fire one, this is the very top ability, alright, for the third skill, which is Burn Soul. So this one it increases damage based on your attack speed and the target's attack speed. So this does a lot of like a large single target burst damage, and it allows you to run speed slot 2 and scale off that. In fact, like the whole tree allows you to do like speed scaling on all 3 abilities. So this is the first skill. Actually no, sorry. This is the upgraded first skill. So this one scales of attack speed, and this is the upgraded second skill, which is a defense break as well. So that's another addition, useful addition that will help you to land that on the groggy stage. And also, and of course it increases based on attack speed too. So you can build like a speedy version of the fire homunculus for that. Alternatively, you can go for eruption. Now eruption will do more potential damage because it's similar to like Magellan and stuff. The more harmful effects you do, 30% damage for each harmful effect. That's a lot of extra damage, and you can do a lot of large burst damage that way. Obviously, the downside is on the non-groggy stage, he doesn't add a lot of damage because he's not scaling off any harmful effects. Whereas Burn Soul would be like more stable on non-groggy stage because he doesn't require any like debuffs for it to scale high damage. So he'll just do high damage. Like he'll do more consistent damage throughout the whole raid, whereas Eruption is more for like trying to do as much as you can in the non-groggy, sorry, in the groggy stage. Now the path for Eruption, you can get branding. All right. What's the other one? Decreased speed. So you probably will go for the brand version. This decreases speed anyway, but it's only for 2 turns. But the turns doesn't matter for the groggy stage anyway, because he only has 1 turn. So having two debuffs on this skill is pretty nice. It's an additional way to get branding. And the first skill is continuous damage, which has no effect. Obviously, the downside to this one would be it does multi-hits, right? And it's on the first skill. So if you use the Eruption version, there is a bit of a risk in that. So I guess it depends. You can test it out, whichever one you want. I feel that it's safest to use the top path with the attack speed scaling version, because they're all single target hits, and it just does consistent damage throughout the whole thing, and you don't have to rely on RNG. Whereas Eruption, your Homunculus might do it too early, right? And then there's like no debuffs, and therefore he does no damage. So yeah, if you want more consistent damage, I would go for Burn Soul. Alright, so I believe that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. So if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask me in comments, and I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. So I hope this is helpful. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.